the opportunity to question two panels of candidates. First, the candidates for seats on the Board of Directors for the Regional School Unit number 26, and immediately following that, the panel of candidates for Town Council. In the first session, you'll hear from four candidates running for three seats on the RSU 26 Board of Directors. And they are Mark Brewer and Brian McGill, who are running for two open seats of three-year terms. Mark was not able to join us tonight because candidates night was scheduled on a night that he was not available, but he has recorded his opening statement, closing statement, and the answers to some questions that we had set out ahead of time. In addition, we also have Leo Kenny and Patrick Rowe, who are running for one open seat of a one-year term. In the second session, you'll have a chance to hear from 8 of the 9 candidates who are running for 4 seats on the Orono Town Council. The 9 candidates are Ashley Case, Daniel Lapointe, Alice Liu, Laura Mitchell, Cheryl Robertson, Jeffrey Wingard, Koala Wise, who are all running for a 3-year terms. There are 3 open 3-year terms. Ms. Wise is likewise not available tonight because we had scheduled at a time when she was not available. In addition, we have Thomas Perry and Anastasia Stanek, who are running for a 1 open seat for a 2-year term. As I moderate tonight's session, Zoom participants are encouraged to use the Q&A function to ask their questions of the candidates. In addition to questions from Zoom, we will be taking call-in questions at 889-6905 and questions by email at info@orono.org. Again, that telephone number is 889-6905. And the email is info@orono.org. There is also a function as a participant where you can raise your hand with a function on Zoom, and we will try our best to catch those and acknowledge those so that we can have you ask your questions live. The format for each of the sessions is going to go like this. We're going to have a timer, timing the candidates in their opening statements and their responses to the questions. Each candidate is going to have the opportunity to give a 2-minute opening statement. And the order of the candidates has been chosen by random draw. After the opening statements are complete, I will open the question and answer segment. And during that segment, each candidate will be allowed a 1-minute response. The candidates will be able to see the timer, and in order to keep things on schedule, there'll be warnings that when they're getting close to the end of their 1 minute, and just to be fair and equal and keep things going, if the person hasn't finished their statement with an additional 10 seconds, then they will be muted at that point. But I'm sure that everybody's going to be able to get their answers within the time frame. And let's see. Oh, and if you are submitting your questions, or asking questions live, I'd ask that you do so as brief and concise as you can. I know that's hard sometimes, particularly when some questions require a lot of input. But the more concise, one, it's easier for me to read, and 2, if we end up with compound questions, it's hard to remember what the first 2 parts of the question might be. Also I understand, and we're all aware of it, that sometimes, particularly now more than ever, that people hold strong positions on many issues. But in this format, would ask that you, when you're asking your questions, that you do so of the candidates and of their positions on certain issues, as opposed to making statements that you might feel and have importance. There's another forum, there are other forums for that. But tonight, just questions as they pertain to the seats that these people are running for. Questions can be directed toward a particular candidate or the candidates at large, but all candidates will have their opportunity to respond to every question asked. It probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, is that we wanted to make sure that this is a civil and respectful session. You probably know, as many of you do, but these are tough positions and tough jobs. And these people have volunteered to undertake these positions that, once elected, are going to require many long hours, many long nights, and the necessity to make some very difficult decisions for the town. And so while we might disagree with someone's particular position, we can still do so in a way that's with respect. I appreciate everybody. We've got a number of participants, it looks like 50 at this point. So we really appreciate that. Glad you're here and give us all the opportunity to learn more about the candidates and their positions. So now we'll begin with the RSU 26 school board candidates. Belle, if you could move them to the screen. I think you have, looks like you have. The order for the candidates will be, well, it depends on the question, but Mark Brewer, I think, will be giving his pre-recorded opening statement first. Then will be Leo Kenny, followed by Brian McGill, and then Patrick Rowe. As questions are asked, I'll be changing the order so that the same person doesn't have to go first every time or end up going last every time. And again, the opening statements are 2 minutes, and the answers to the questions are 1 minute. I will thank the three candidates as well as Mark for their willingness to serve on the board. Good luck to everybody. And as an aside, remember that if you do put up your signs announcing your candidacy, the state law requires that you put your name and contact information on them. All right. So let's start off with opening statements. And the first one will be from Mark Brewer.
Hi, my name is Mark Brewer, and I'm a candidate for one of the seats on the RSU 26 Board of Directors, which helps to oversee our schools here in Orono. I've been on the board now for a number of years. I find it a very rewarding way to serve my community. My background is in education. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Political Science at the University of Maine. I live right here in Orono with my wife Tammy and my 4 kids, all of whom go to the Orono schools, 2 at ASA, 1 at the middle school and 1 at the high school. I'm very proud of the work that we've been able to do in the Orono schools in the last few years, and I'm hoping that you'll be willing to return me for another term on the board so that I can help push our work forward. So thank you again for attending Candidates Night. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person, but I hope that you find the night informative as we move forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Let's then go to Leo Kenny. Leo.
Thank you, Mr. Chase. My name is Leo Kenny, and I'm running to complete the remaining 1-year term on the seat that I'm currently occupying. I was appointed to fill the seat last April by the town council. That was due to a vacancy that had occurred. It is actually the second time that I've been asked and have stepped in to fill a vacated board seat. I did the same back in 2016. I stepped in for a year term to complete another vacancy. Prior to that, I had served a full term, ran for and served a full term from 2008 to 2011. And leading up to that, I had served about 12 or 18 months on a school consolidation committee. Some might remember the days of consolidation, most definitely some interesting times. And when I stepped in last April, that was also, of course, another very interesting time. I'm definitely proud of the work of our district, proud of our staff, our administration, and also the current board. You know, Brian and Mark, who are thankfully running for another full term, Jake Eckert, Aaron Ellis, and myself. We've managed to navigate through some, I think, unprecedented times. And just to share a little bit about my background, I am an Orono native, grew up in Orono a few years ago. I'm a small business owner for the past 23 years. Lived here for about, lived away for about 10 years, and we moved our family back in business back to Orono about 17 years ago. 3 kids who all attended the Orono schools. I did some quick math. So I've been an Asa Adams parent for 18 years, an Orono Middle School parent for 9, and currently a OHS parent for 9. So definitely know the Orono schools. The key thing I think I bring to the position is obviously experience. I think most would agree that it can take a year or so to get up to speed when joining a new board. The advantage I think I bring is, you know, there's going to be no learning curve for this final 1 year of the term, and I think my time is up.
Thank you, Leo. Right on time. Brian McGill. Oh, if you need to unmute there, Brian, thanks.
Good evening. My name is Brian McGill. I'm running for re-election to the RSU 26 school board for the simple reason that I'm really passionate about education. When you think about it, there's nothing more important you can do to invest in the future of this town, this country, and this planet than educating our youth. I'm an educator myself. I work at the university. I'm a faculty member in the biology department. Prior to that, I had a 10-year career in business. So I feel like I bring a bit of a merging of both an educational background as well as a management background. By the time I left the business career, I was one of 7 senior executives in a company of 1,000 people. It was a small company when I joined it. I've lived in Orono for more than 10 years. I have 2 boys who both have attended all 3 of our schools. One of them is now an alum and one of them is still in the high school. I've been on the board for about 6 years, and I've been the board chair for about the past 5 years, just short of that. We have a number of major challenges ahead of us, several of which I've been in the thick of and would like to continue to see through. One of them is COVID, managing our schools to be safe and at the same time maximizing the educational benefits we can give to our kids during this time has been a really major challenge. And so far, I would say I'm pretty proud of how we managed to navigate that. But it's not going to stop this summer or whenever the vaccines change the story, because at this point, there's a lot of catching up kids will need to do too. So managing that's going to be very important. I've also been very actively involved in building support for, finding finance for, and supervising the construction process, which I think is starting to look really exciting. We're starting to see a lot of our buildings closed in and nearing completion in the next year, some of it in 2 years. I also think diversity, equity, and inclusion will be an important agenda item going forward. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian. And now Patrick Rowe.
Okay, all set. Hello, everyone. I'm running for a seat on the RSU 26 school board because I am passionate about public education. Our children deserve the best education we can provide with the most opportunities and in the safest environment possible. I grew up attending a public school. I'm the child of a lifelong educator. Experience has taught me that a well-run and well-funded public school system is the foundation of a strong community. When our family moved to Maine, RSU 26's stellar reputation was the deciding factor in choosing where to live. I believe that the role of the board is to help foster an environment where students and educators have the best chance of succeeding. During this pandemic, we should be looking at what we need to do to ensure that our schools can stay open and that as many students as possible can safely attend in person. We need to think of ways to adapt our routines and activities, to consider how to apply science and public health guidance to create a healthy environment where students, teachers, and all members of the RSU 26 community can be safe while achieving excellence. As a parent, I have an interest in making sure that students of all ages are represented on the board. If elected, I would be the only board member with a child at Asa Adams when the next school year begins. As a dentist with a degree in public health, I have experience with large institutions and working with state agencies. I previously worked as the dental director of the Vermont Department of Health. I'm also familiar with running a business on a tight budget. Before our family moved to Orono, I started and served as the director of a nonprofit dental clinic where I was also the lead practicing clinician. Most importantly, I believe in practices based on scientific evidence. As an incoming school board member, I would bring this perspective to the table in support of RSU 26 students, teachers, staff, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. And so just as an aside, Bill, I'm not sure that perhaps you can tell me how I could access if people are raising their hands, because I can't necessarily see that on my screen. Maybe you could send me a note on that. And in the meantime, I'll start with the questions. So first question, we'll start with Leo Kenny. The first question is, and I think, actually, you know, I'm going to, because I think you've all addressed the first question pretty well. What do you think are the most important priorities or goals for the school district at this time? And what role should the school board take in pursuit of these? So again, the most important priorities or goals of the school district, and what's the school board's roles in pursuing those? Yes, that's you, Leo. Yeah.
You skipped over one, huh?
Yeah. I think everybody
I
addressed that one, so.
I think one of the
try and answer in a minute, but I'll give it a shot nonetheless. I think
what was that?
That was
Sorry, that
that-
was me trying to queue up another video without having it live. Leo, let me restart your timer for you.
All right, thanks. Can we?
I'll
yeah,
restart it for you again. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and start.
44. I think one of the top priorities that we need to focus on as a system is the mental health impacts on all of our students for based from the past 10 months of living with COVID. As a state and as a district, we've definitely focused on the physical safety, how many kids can be in the building, where they can walk, how we can feed them lunch, etc. But we really haven't dealt with is how this generation of students is going to be impacted by so much loss, loss of connections, social interactions, being with classmates, school dances, prom, graduation, fans at sporting events, audience at performances, even, you know, smiles from teachers. They literally have not seen a smile from a teacher, which is it's a pretty strange concept. I think these losses are very real. I think as the board's role, honestly, is to ask questions, offer ideas, but make sure that does get a priority.
Thank you. Brian, that same question in terms of what do you think are the most important priorities or goals for the school district, and what should the roles of the school board be in pursuit?
So maybe I'll answer that second part first. I'm a really firm believer that it matters how you get to a decision. And in fact, if you use the right process to get to a decision, you'll make the right decision. So I'm a really strong believer in decision making by consensus. Oftentimes, sometimes you can't do that. Strong transparency, strong consultation with the community, strong consultation with other stakeholders like the teachers, the parents, the students. So I think the process is really important. As far as priorities, COVID has to be at the top of the list. And, you know, there's a short-term goal of managing that, but as Leo was saying, there's a long-term goal. There's both educational, mental health, not to mention food security. There's a lot of issues to address even once COVID settles down, whatever that means someday in the future. I do think we're in the middle of a construction project. We've got to manage that well. And really, I think budgets are always something that the board has to pay attention to as well. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Patrick, again, the important priorities or goals of the district and the board's role.
Sure, thank you. You know, this is a really unique moment in time with COVID. I think that maintaining a safe learning environment for our students so that education is not disrupted further has to be a top priority. We need to manage the schools in such a way that that when, you know, not if, more contagious coronavirus variants make it to Orono, we can maintain excellence in education. For those students who prefer fully remote education, and there are plenty of students like that, and are thriving in that environment, we should continue to expand and support that remote learning. For those who do better with in-person learning, and that might be most kids, we need to do everything we can to keep the schools open at all costs. That may mean reevaluating some of our existing policies to ensure that health and safety standards are applied appropriately in all school and after-school settings, following evidence-based guidance.
Thank you. Belle, are you able to share Mark's response?
That's a very complicated question to try and answer in a minute, but I'll give it a shot nonetheless. I think in the kind of immediate term that we're facing, like right now, I think the most important challenge facing our school district is how do we recover from the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. I think we're still kind of learning what the lasting impact of COVID is going to be on our students and our faculty and staff. We're going to need to continue to learn more on that, but I think that's going to undoubtedly be our number one priority. After that, I mean, we've got some other ongoing issues, providing the best education that we can.
Okay. Belle, are we able to move from that? So Belle, if I can, I'd like to move to the next question. And so long as the system can make that, can adapt to that. So the next question will start with Brian. Given the ongoing challenge of balancing property tax impacts for residents and the needs of the school district, how would you approach decision-making around budgetary issues?
So I can't tell if Belle's got the timer going. It doesn't look like she
Sorry,
does.
I apparently had a little momentary internet blip and things crashed and reloaded. So I will go ahead and start the timer in about 3 seconds. As a reminder, you'll see 45 seconds in green, 15 seconds in yellow. That's your full minute to answer. I know that threw you for a little loop, Leo. And then there's the 10 seconds of extra time. All right, and I will start the timer now.
So, I mean, this is always one of the hardest choices, right? Sometimes it's easy to just do what you think is best for the kids, but in the budgets, you're balancing, as the question says, taxpayers, which I am a taxpayer. I expect all of us as candidates are taxpayers. You're balancing those needs. My basic view is you should deliver the schools that the town wants. And I think the town of Orono does expect very good schools, and history has shown they're willing to pay for them. My basic view is that the schools are about the right resource level right now. You know, they need to keep pace with inflation and growing student enrollments, so you're not effectively cutting them, but that we are about right balance. So really the goal is to be dynamic and reallocate resources to support new initiatives. Unfortunately, the state's not doing a great job. We just got our funding for this coming year, and it's behind inflation and student enrollment increases. So it's actually a budget cut, and that puts us in a tough choice every year. So you do the best you can, you balance things. There's not a magic formula when you're put in that position as a board member.
Thank you, Brian. Patrick, again, the challenge of balancing property tax impacts for residents and the needs of the ongoing school district, and how would you approach that?
Yeah, thank you, David. This is a really good question. You know, I think that emphasizing the students and looking at the best possible educational outcomes should always be the priority. Doing this in an environment where funding does not keep up with costs is always a challenge. Back when I was running a nonprofit that saw increased costs without an increase in state funding, we had to be pretty creative with our budgeting, and we ran as lean as possible. You know, we always put patients first. We made sure the cost savings measures did not impact clinical care. I think you can do something similar with education. But, you know, creative budgeting can only take you so far. And at some point, it's necessary to engage with the community and make the case for why education funding should be a priority over other needs. And that may mean looking at local measures, or it might mean engaging with legislators to rebalance state and national spending priorities.
Thank you, Patrick. Bill, could you queue up Mark's response? I'm sorry, Leo's next. I'm sorry. Geez, sorry about that, Leo. I took you out of order. So if you,
I think Mark is.
yeah, I think that was on me.
Patrick, Mark, Lee.
I can play the video. I do have it ready.
Okay. me do
Dave
that
and I
now.
had talked about doing it last just to allow me technical
Oh, that's fine too.
um,
You want to do that?
time, but I can do whatever Dave wants me to do.
So let's help out Bill as best we can, Leo, if you're ready to go, if that's all right.
Yep. Very, very good question. Very real concern. As a small business, I can tell you that COVID has had a severe and direct impact on my business. State revenue is, of course, dependent on taxes. So when business revenues are down 40 to 60%, and I think that's fairly common, the tax revenue is also obviously going to be down. For Orono, Brian mentioned that it's not keeping up with inflation, but we are fortunate that our student enrollment has increased, and that's the primary driver for EPS. So we have that going for us. It's definitely going to be still a challenging year. I think as a board, the budget comes to us. We don't necessarily build it, but we have to be willing to, ask hard questions. And there are definitely times where we have to make hard decisions. And I do think the current board has a really good track record of striking that balance.
Thank you, Leo. Bill, could we do Mark's response now? So I'm not hearing it, Bill. I'm not sure if anybody else is.
No.
Can you start it again?
Yeah, let me restart that.
Thank you.
Obviously, the need to be fiscally responsible on the part of the board is one of our overwhelming and overarching kind of responsibilities and goals. And it's something that the board, at least since I've been on there, has taken seriously. We all recognize the burden that property taxes place on all of Orono residents, at the same time recognizing the need to provide a top quality education to Orono students. I think the responsibility of the board on this is to really kind of keep those two twin goals in mind of fiscal responsibility and top quality education, and keep those front and center in every single decision we make, to be fiscally responsible and prudent with the resources that are at our disposal, but also provide a top quality education to our students.
Thank you. I think I will jump to what was question 5, which comes from a resident. And I'm going to start with Patrick. That question is or should the 1619 project part of Orono school curriculum? And for just for those that may not be aware, I'm reading from the New York Times website. The 1619 project is an ongoing initiative from the New York Times surrounding the 400th anniversary of American slavery. And its aim is to reframe the country's history by placing the consequences of slavery and the contributions of Black Americans at the very center of the national narrative. And so, Patrick, would you?
Yeah, thank you. I'm not aware to what extent this is already a part of the curriculum, but I think this question is a really good one. It raises a very important issue. Discussions surrounding race and inequality are important in any education. And when you're learning about different societies, including our own, it's important not to shy away from discussions on persecution, slavery, and genocide. I believe that having a historically accurate curriculum taught in a comprehensive and age-appropriate manner can only benefit our students and also our community as a whole.
Thank you. Let's see, Leo, please.
Yeah, I do not know if it is part of the curriculum. I can say in the past year, I've not seen anything brought to the board for consideration on the 1619 project. Quite frankly, I didn't know what it was until I saw the question, and so I don't know a lot about it. But question of should it be? I think if there's a curriculum change that's required, it would first go through a curriculum committee before it comes to the board. I think for me as a board member, I'd want to understand if that did come forward, you know, what is the current curriculum? What were the deficits with the current curriculum? Does this address or correct those deficits? What other options were considered? Assuming 1619 is chosen. So I think, you know, in short, it's a data-driven kind of gap analysis-based approach to any major fundamental changes that come with the curriculum.
Thank you. Brian?
Yeah, I think it's critical that our schools teach our history truthfully and accountably. It's important to teach some of our great moments, but it's probably important, maybe more important, to teach some of our not so great moments, especially when those consequences are still rippling through our society today. That certainly includes our treatment of Africans, now African Americans, through slavery, and it includes our treatment of Native Americans as well. There are a number of initiatives. I don't even really have time to go through them. There's so many going on right now with regards to looking at our I think we've done a decent job in this district, but I think we're far from perfect and there's room for improvement. There's a number of initiatives looking at addressing changes to our curriculum in these areas, which I'm part of and proud of and fully support. As far as the specific curriculum, like specifically 1619, we have a pretty robust curriculum process that gets input from a lot of different teachers and experts. And I think it's important that we respect that process as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill, did Mark respond to that question?
He did, and I will cue that video up.
I think the 1619 project absolutely should be part of the RSU 26 school curriculum. I think going beyond that, I think that, you know, matters of equity across the board need to be taken into fuller account and more fully incorporated into the curriculum. We're in the process of doing that right now at RSU 26 across on a whole variety of levels. I'm strongly supportive of that move and will very much work to see that it continues going forward, both specifically for the 1619 project, but also in all matters of equity that we need to take into consideration. So absolutely.
Okay, so now I have one question more, I think, that that we'll have before we do closing statements. So this is from an attendee, and it's for the school board, obviously. What are your views on making vaccinations available to faculty and students when permitted or recommended by the CDC? So if you could respond to that, and let's start with Leo.
My view would be, I'm not fully sure what's being asked there. I don't believe it's the school's responsibility or position to be administering vaccinations to staff or students. Allowing staff, I guess, I don't think it pertains to falls within our purview, and I don't believe they should be offered through school.
Okay, thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. You know, I think my background in public health will let you know that I think that vaccinations are a really good idea in general. And I love the fact that it can be offered through the school. I had my flu shot this past fall at Asa Adams out in the the playground area under the tent at the same time that my daughter had hers. You know, I went first and she went right afterwards. That was a wonderful experience. I think when immunization is recommended for children, that we need to look at offering that through the school system. I think that's a great place to do it. I think for teachers, you know, as soon as it's available, we should be giving them the opportunity to be immunized as well.
Thank you. Ryan?
I think vaccinations are an important part of the story of how we get out of the current mess we're in COVID. So I think they're really important to maximize opportunities. I think right now the school board's probably main role is helping to advocate with the state to prioritize teachers to have the opportunity to get vaccinations. I think also, as Patrick mentioned, to the extent that places want to use our facilities, I'm fully supportive of using our facilities in appropriate ways to help the public get vaccinated as well. Laws requiring vaccinations that's not a school board purview. That's a matter of state law at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. So, boy, that half an hour went fast. And there's so many issues that are on the table, but really appreciate what has been addressed, because I think what you have addressed is some really important issues that are forefront of what's going on right now. And so at this point, we'll go to closing statements, and the timer will show up for that. And we will start with, I believe, Patrick. As soon as Bell can put up our timer.
I'm just waiting for Patrick to
Oh,
unmute.
okay, sorry, forgot I wasn't unmuted there. Sorry about that. Ready whenever you are.
Go ahead.
Okay, you know, I'd like to thank everyone in the community who helps to make the Orono school system thrive. In the time that our family has been here, we've seen what a great place this is to raise kids and how strongly the community supports education. I'm running for school board because I believe that at this time, my background enables me to make significant contributions to how our schools are run. I'll bring an evidence-based approach to decision-making. Working together, we can ensure that our schools are a safe and healthy place for students to learn and grow. An emphasis on education has always been a strong part of my life. As a board member, I will make sure that our students and teachers have the ability to co-create an environment which fosters a lifelong love of learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Leo, please.
So I would also like to thank everyone who's taken the time tonight to log in and listen in and caring enough about our schools to take time out of your evening to hear from people and ask questions and whatnot. I encourage everyone to vote on March 9th, and I'm of course asking for your vote. I am not a career politician, and I never intend to become one, to be candid. I only run for a position when I feel like there's a need where my expertise can be of value. And this is one of those times. It's a challenging time. When I ran in 2011, it was also a challenging time because we were dealing with school consolidation. I chose the one-year position because my hope is that we're going to be through the hard parts of COVID surely by next year, so at the latest. I think there's tremendous value in the continuity of me staying on the board, and that's what drove my decision to run. For me, being from Orono has a special meaning. This really is a special place to grow up, and I want to make sure it continues to be special for every kid.
Thank you, Leo. Ryan?
I would just like to thank everybody for listening and for submitting questions. I'd also like to thank Bell for running what looks like the most complicated Zoom meeting on the planet. So I appreciate that. And David as well. Yeah, like I said, I just really think education is one of the most important things you can do. It's where I put almost all of my volunteer time. And of late, that has been almost entirely through the school board. I'm the board chair. I'm the chair of the curriculum committee. Participate in the chair of the policy committee. I participate in the curriculum committee, participating in several of the diversity and equity committees. I just really, and I'm very involved in the construction process too. So there's just a lot of things going on. I feel like I have a lot of value to add to that between my education and business background. And I would just ask for your vote, whether it's absentee or early voting or voting on March 9th. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe Mark has a closing statement. Is that right, Bill?
So in closing, thank you again for attending Orono Candidates Night. It's an important function that I very much appreciate the town putting on. As someone who takes public life seriously and civic responsibility seriously, this is a great service that the town provides. I appreciate you attending tonight and listening to what the candidates have to say and asking questions. And I very much hope that you will turn out on election day. So thank you again for participating and have a good night.
Right. So thanks to the four of you for participating and joining us tonight. As always, the opportunity to ask questions and talk about things is extremely valuable. And hats off many times to Bell in having this happen in a way that seemed to be running pretty smoothly. So again, thanks to the four of you. And
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Bill.
we're going to take a brief, just a minute or so break to allow Bell to organize the panelists for the town council candidates. And while she's doing that, I had kind of planned a 5-minute monologue that I was going to give, but Bell said that I couldn't do that. So instead, so I thought, well, in order to keep things light, maybe I would do a little stand up and tell a joke. But I tried to tell a joke over my last Zoom meeting, and it wasn't even remotely funny. So that's my attempt at humor. So we are about ready to start on the with the town council, and it's just as a so as we come back to the session for town council candidates, there is a large candidate pool, which is great for council seats, and we expect that this session is going to take a bit longer because of that. But that will depend in part on how many questions we receive from the public. And the initial attempt was to finish by 8 o'clock. I'm not sure if we can do that or not, but that's our goal. As a reminder, there are 4 seats open on the town council. We have 7 candidates running for 3 3-year terms and 2 candidates running to fill 1 1-year term. The random order of candidates tonight starts with Anastasia Stanek, Ashley Case, Alice Liu, Thomas Perry, Cheryl Robertson, Jeffrey Wingard, Laura Mitchell, and Dan LaPointe. And so same format as we did with the school board, 2-minute opening statements, following by questions with 1-minute responses from each candidate and a 1-minute closing to wrap up. And so if Bell, if you're ready to begin, then I would have Anastasia start with her opening statement.
Can we just do a little quick screen check?
Yeah.
Everybody moves so fast on the attendees. I want to make sure that we've got all the candidates on the screen, and that I didn't accidentally, I have already promoted a few attendees and had to demote them. So I believe that we have everybody here now.
I think the only one we're waiting for maybe is Dan for the video.
I don't believe Dan has video.
Okay. All right.
I think he just will have audio for us.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So we will begin with Anastasia then.
Also, I need to switch my timer, so just a minute.
Can I, my
Lord.
internet is funny right now. If I bop off, can I get right back in? Switch my internet connection?
Yeah, Laura, if you leave and then come back using the link that you had, you will come back in as a panelist, so you should be okay.
Okay, thank you.
So let me know when you're ready, Belle.
I think that I'm ready.
Okay, let's try it out. Anastasia.
Hi, everyone. I'd just like to start by saying thank you so much to Belle for lending us your expertise and for doing all of the work to facilitate this meeting and making it what it is. I appreciate you. And David, of course, thank you for hosting. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Anastasia Stanek. I am an honors student at the University of Maine, majoring in political science. I'm devoted to public service, and I've developed my results-oriented skill set by working with a number of nonprofits such as the Boys and Girls Club, the Humane Society, United Way, and in the nonprofit sector, my work has included many things such as program development, fundraising, organizing, marketing, and teaching. In addition to my nonprofit work, of course, I'm a dedicated member of both the Orono and University of Maine communities. And in the town, I'm on the Orono Environment Committee and the Orono Historical Society. At the university, I serve on the Maine Peace Action Committee and the Student Advisory Board. And I'm running because I believe representation is important. And I want to ensure that the students at the University of Maine and recent graduates who choose to stay here instead of migrating have a voice in their local government. Let me see, checking time. We're good. If elected, I'll use my unique perspective and results-oriented skill set to address COVID-19 relief, green economic development, and improve communication between elder, family, and student communities.
Thank you. Ashley Case, please.
First of all, thank you to the town of Orono for putting this on and for this awesome group of candidates I'm running with. I'm so excited that there are this many people who are interested in public service. It's so great. It says a lot about our town. I'm Ashley Case. I grew up right down the road in Milo, but I've been in Orono for about 5 years now with my Asa Adams fourth grader Iris and my husband Tom, who is a chemical engineering professor at the university. I got my bachelor's in English and environmental public policy at Green Mountain College in Vermont. And I came back to Maine and I was a single mother to Iris for about 5 years before we met Tom. There was a pretty sizable break in my education. I worked in a number of different fields, and then I decided to go back to the university to get my master's degree, which I'm finishing this May. I'm getting a degree in global policy with the School of Policy and International Affairs. Although I think Orono has already done a lot of great work as a town, I'd like to take the experience I have and the education that I have in environmental policy to help make Orono a greener place to live and work. I'm also interested in affordable housing in Orono, so more young families like ours can choose to live in this vibrant community with the excellent schools that we just heard about, library, public safety, and not to mention the awesome farmers market that we have in town. And rather than spend a ton of time talking about myself, I'd love to hear about the issues that are important to voters and answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ashley. Next, we'll hear from Alice Liu.
We all set, Bill? So, hi everyone, my name's Alice Liu. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm running for a 3-year counselor position. I really appreciate the folks who worked hard to put this event together in this whole kind of election cycle, and everybody who's joining in on the call tonight. I'm originally from away, so I've been living and working in Orono for about 8 years now. And I did my undergrad and my graduate work at UMaine, and I received my master's in education in 2016. I live right in downtown Orono with a rather grumpy cat named Edgar. You might hear him, he's pretty vocal. Over the past several years, I've really made an effort to be a part of the communities here in Orono. I volunteer with the Orono Community Garden. I work in the farmers market in the summer. While I'm a bit biased to Orono in the summer, I've really come to love all of the seasons here, even mud season. In the before times, I really love going to the community dinners at the Wilson Center and the Islamic Center and traveling to see my loved ones because I'm the only one in my family that lives in Maine. I look forward to answering all the questions that have been compiled for us before now and whatever folks at home would like to hear directly from us about. I yield my time.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Tom Perry.
Hi, I'm Tom Perry. I'm running for a 2-year seat on the Orono Town Council. I've lived in Orono for over 50 years, first as a university student, then as an employee of the Orono School Department for 33 years, and now as a retiree. My wife Connie and I raised our 2 children here, and they greatly benefited from the education they received and the resources the community offered. Orono has been a wonderful place to live, and I look forward to giving back to the community through continued service on the Town Council. I've served 5 terms on the council. During that time, I've chaired the council's Finance and Operations Committee, and since December 1st, I have served as council chair. In addition, for the last 8 years, I've represented our senatorial district as a member of the Maine Municipal Association's Legislative Policy Committee. This committee establishes positions on each piece of proposed legislation that affects Maine towns and cities. I decided to seek another term on the council in order to continue my involvement in the important work ahead of us. This work includes continuing to implement the recommendations found in the Orono Comprehensive Plan, working to develop budgets that balance the needs of the community and the town's finite resources, maintaining high-quality services that Orono residents expect and enjoy, and advocating at the state level for legislation that benefits municipalities, and working to make Orono an even more attractive and welcoming community for all residents and visitors. I look forward to the work and think I can make a contribution to the council.
Thank you, Tom. Next, we'll hear from Cheryl Robertson.
Hi, again, thank you, Dave and staff for making this possible. My name is Cheryl Robertson. I am running for a 2nd term on council. I feel very deeply about community service and giving back to the community that I consider home. During my 1st term, I wrote and submitted a proposal to create an ad hoc community-based environment committee, which is charged with helping to reduce Orono's environmental footprint. I introduced a recycling reform resolution to support a statewide initiative, which, if passed this legislative session, would reimburse a portion of municipal site recycling costs back to the town of Orono in the form of revenue. My 1st year, I organized Orono's first ever kids night at council, which was preempted this year by the virus. I also believe in involving our youngest residents. I'm an educator. I believe in involving our youngest residents in our community. I have volunteered to be a representative on the board of the Orono Economic Development Corporation, and I am an alternate for Tom on the Legislative Policy Committee. I'm also a UM grad with a doctorate in education, and I have lived in Orono since 2005. I hike, I kayak, I eat at local restaurants and shop locally. And as a parent, I believe that this is the best place, probably in Maine, to raise my son. So thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Next, we'll hear from Jeff Wingard.
We all set, Bill. Thank you very much. Thank everyone for coming out and attending tonight, attending virtually. My name is Jeff Wingard. I moved to town about 20 years ago with my family, primarily for the schools. And what we quickly found is that the schools are integral to the community. And as my investment in the school system grew, so did my investment in the community. I like to think I've given back to the community over the years, and I've served and volunteered in a number of capacities. I've also made my professional life in public service, first as a police officer and for the past 2 decades as a teacher. I have 3 real goals for sitting on the town council. One is to continue to build and rebuild community connections, particularly as we come hopefully out of the COVID epidemic. 2 is to preserve and maintain the environmental quality and the relationships that the town enjoys to allow access to our environmental resources. And my 3rd goal is to concentrate on business friendliness. I really think that communities grow largely because they allow many diverse economic opportunities to take place. And Orono is not a bedroom community. We have to struggle not to be known as a bedroom community. And I really like to work to help the town change some perceptions that exist, that we're only a university town and we're only a sleepy little town, where this is a pretty dynamic place full of great, really creative, strong people. And I'd like to be part of marketing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Laura Mitchell.
Thank you. Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, and thank you for listening in. My name is Laura Hoovler Mitchell. I have a long history in Orono. I grew up and attended public schools here, and then attended the University of Maine for undergrad and grad school, living on campus, living off campus. Moved away to Boston and San Francisco, and then moved back for grad school and have lived in Bangor and Hamden as well. My family chose to move back to Orono a little over a year ago because of the schools, because of the natural resources here, because of the people and the wonderful place this is. And I can concur that this really is the best place to raise your kids. And really want to support the town in a couple key areas around financial sustainability coming out of COVID. What can we as a town and council do to support local businesses, providing pedestrian spaces, providing them outdoor spaces for business activity in the short term, and then over the long term coming out of this pandemic. I think affordable housing and housing rehabilitation is critical for our community, and revitalizing some properties that were rentals for a long time and building that neighborhood energy and continuity to bring them back as places where families choose to live. I also think selling the superb lifestyle here is critical. I ran a survey and people wanted to work on the rec program and affordable housing and collaborating with other communities. I just really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and the opportunity to serve and support the town of Orono. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Daniel Lapointe.
Hello?
Yes, you're on, Dan.
Nice. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for doing such a good job. You know, this Zoom stuff is pretty sad, but, you know, you're doing a good presentation here. Thank you. You know, some old stuff that happened needs to be spoken about here. The library could have been put together with Carnegie, and we wouldn't have had to pay for it. The school itself and all that cost for the community could have been put up by the turn circle at the end of Rangeley Drive, taking in the communities of the Milltown, Old Town, and all the surrounding communities. And guess what? We wouldn't have had to pay for it. All of these decisions are moved, and I see all of you having incomes that are just so lovely, but real true residents of the town of Orono are being driven out. The mill rate is very high, and taxation is terrible. You're very hard on businesses, and, you know, we had just the most recently thing, we had BLM on the windows of our town hall. This is an abdication or surrendering, if you will, for an ideology that has no place in our society. Martin Luther King had it right, and I represent his ideas that constitutionally everybody is equal. The problem is taking things like this 1619 and project and putting it in our schools, and Black Lives Matter, a Marxist organization, all pretty sad. We must not go there. I am an alternative candidate, and I hear none of you expressing constitutional correctness for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. So that completes the opening statement. So I am going to jump around a little bit. We've had several questions come in from the audience, and so I'm going to start with one of those. And we will start with Ashley on this. The question is, Back in the fall, over 200 residents, myself included, signed a petition asking for the creation of a committee to address equity and justice. However, the council still has not even brought this up for a vote. Would the candidates commit to making this issue a priority? And would you vote yes on establishing a committee? And again, the question regards a petition on the creation of committee to address equity and justice, not yet addressed, at least according to the question, and how you would, is that a priority and how would you vote on it? And so Ashley, please.
Yeah, so those are issues that are really important to me as well. I actually was on a call, I think it was through the university, where we talked about how to talk to your kids about some of these things that are happening, or especially surrounding race in our country right now. And it's a really challenging issue because there are some big things in the news that you have to talk to your children about that are going to impact our community and community members. And so I think that a committee would be a really great place to start, because there's a number of different ways that we as a community can make people feel welcome and supported and want to be here. And I think that's really important. So I would be all for a committee on justice.
Thank you, Ashley. And just a reminder, and you hit it on the head in terms of timing. A minute isn't very long, but it allows everybody to address them. So next, Alice Liu, please, on that question.
So I love the idea of a committee. I think what I would need to know before I could make a solid decision is that a committee that's just going to make recommendations, or is that, a committee that has some power or authority in what's happening? I think we have gotten to a place where we're talking a lot about diversity, inclusion, equity, justice, but what that looks like in action isn't clear. And I think a lot of people have concerns about that, but I would love to have folks from the Penobscot Nation. I mean, the town of Orono is named after a leader from that community, be a part of that, because they're both just down the road and living in our communities now. So I would really like to know more about how the committee would work and how those recommendations would either be put into action and not just kind of a plaque that we put on our wall and pat ourselves on the back about.
Thank you. Tom Perry.
So very important topics, equity and justice, and the town has been doing a good deal of work in that regard in terms of professional development for our staff. The council decided that we wanted to educate ourselves better on the topic, and we have been doing work on that. We had a workshop last month in which we dealt with it, and we're having another workshop Monday night to deal with it. So I think that it is very much on our mind and a topic that we all feel is very important.
Thank you, Tom. Cheryl Robertson.
Yeah, I'm going to reiterate what Tom said. Council has been in training. We've been doing some diversity training. I've been doing some work with environmental justice and the impacts that our community can have on lower income people as far as policy and operations go. Lower income and I'm going to say marginalized people. And we really have been working on building a foundation first and becoming more educated and around those kinds of topics and how they impact our decisions as a community and as a council.
Thank you, Cheryl. Jeff?
Yeah, thanks. I think this is probably one of the top two issues that small communities confront. I am on my employer's diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, and as a group, what we've struggled with is how to bring the lessons from other parts of the country to their small communities in Maine. It's a challenging topic. I really appreciated the workshop that Councillor Gardner put on last month. I watched it online, and I was able to exchange an email with her afterwards, and she was so willing to share resources with me. I think that spirit goes a long way. That said, I think we as a town have to be intentional about our commitment to engaging people across our community, and not just accept passively that we're trying to do the right thing, but be constructive in building opportunities for people to come together. So I think there's lots of ways to do that. And I think a formal committee is just the first step in doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Laura?
Yeah, I think this issue is incredibly important, and grateful that the council has begun an educational process. I think moving forward, there certainly is an opportunity to engage community members and entities in the community, whether it's the university, the Islamic Center of Maine, and others, and those in surrounding communities, to help build and educate and strengthen this understanding in our community on these issues. And really hearing from the residents that signed this petition and understanding what they wanted from the committee and what they hoped to accomplish in the community. Those would be important things, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel? Dan, if you would, I think if you would unmute, we can bring you in. So Daniel, I can come back to you, but if you, right now, we're not hearing you just because I think you're still muted. Okay. Well,
I'm
okay,
here.
there we
Can
go.
you hear me?
I can now. Yes, great.
Oh, thank God. Gee, this machine. I don't like these things. And thank
far,
you
so
for being
good.
patient. Listen, I have a real hard problem. Every single one of you are white. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm Maliseet, French Acadian, and Jewish. My family has no genocides. Shame on you. Martin Luther King's presentation, or for his presentation for having everybody being treated equitably under the Declaration of Freedom, is the most important thing. How dare you do political correctness on us and create the circumstances of a crystal knock in our community? We have ghettos that are Nazi type designed, masks and lockdowns. And now you're doing more, and you're doing things how to implement this, and you're not doing anything constitutionally. Shame on all of you. My answer is absolutely no. Crystal knock ghettos. We have mask and lockdown ghettos. Shame on all of you. Shame on you. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me. I have bullet holes in my house because people didn't like me.
Thank you, Dan. Anastasia.
Hey, well, I just like to start by saying that I'm so glad that this issue was proposed. There's a lot that I want to say on this, but I know I only have 30 seconds. So I'll just say that the relationship between the United States and people of color have been one of the biggest blemishes on our entire history. And I know Mr. Lapointe was talking about the Constitution earlier. Well, in the Constitution, it says that all men are created equal, but many of the people that wrote that statement owned slaves that were, of course, treated far from equally. And I believe that as someone who is not a person of color, it is my job to do everything in my power to not just, of course, not be racist, but to actively be an anti-racist, which is creating and supporting policies that allow for a more united and fair society for everyone.
Thank you. So the next question we have is from a resident. And I think this plays into why we are at a Zoom meeting. Phase 1B for COVID-19 vaccinations in Maine, scheduled for February, April, includes people over 70 and adults with high-risk medical conditions. Many Orono residents included in this class are low income. They may not own their own car and may be avoiding public transportation during the pandemic. It's a 10-mile hike each way from most of Orono to the current vaccination site at the Cross Center in Bangor. If elected to the town council, what will you do to make vaccinations practically accessible to these Orono residents? And let's start with Alice, please. And I can repeat that if you need that too.
So I think what comes to mind is how can we make it more localized and more accessible? So I'm fairly familiar with Hasbrook and the other kind of affordable living area that usually caters to older folks. And so part of me wonders if we can use the Keith Anderson Center or that kind of general area by the public library. And then I'm not exactly sure about the best place in kind of those more rural parts of Orono that aren't in town proper, but identifying those places that make it accessible and potentially working with, we have the community connector that runs through Orono and figuring out how we can do that in a safe manner that is mindful of weather conditions that might keep folks, and then potentially working on, can we bring it to those areas if we have like a big area that we know there are folks there, can we set up a mobile clinic situation?
Thank you. Tom?
It's a great question. I think the town council would be very interested in providing access to the vaccinations in town facilities. And we don't have control over that necessarily. I think that's something that other agencies control where they hold these things, but making it close to the people, helping with transportation, I think those things would be all very attractive things for us to do. I spent time in Greenville, Maine, and I was fortunate enough to get my vaccination because I'm over 70 in Greenville, and it was in a community facility. It was a very fast operation, very nice people, and I'd be very interested in duplicating that sort of environment in Orono.
Thank you. Cheryl?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I also live with a person who has had the vaccine and has had the second one too. I always look to, not always, but the University of Maine has a great outdoor facility. And when I dropped my son off this semester and they did the drive-through COVID testing, I don't see why they couldn't set up a drive-through vaccination site when the rollout starts to become a little bit more accessible. And I can see council providing transportation, and also residents in Orono are very willing to help out anyone who needs anything like that. So it is definitely possible, and it's definitely an issue right now.
Thank you. Jeff?
Yeah, thanks. It's a big problem because there's no silver bullet. There's no single solution. So I think whatever community response we're able to initiate has to be sort of a multi-focused response. So the use of local sites, in the previous comments, there was a question about using schools. Would schools be an appropriate vaccination site? And I believe they would be. I believe there are other municipal facilities that might also be adequate as vaccination sites, such as Keith Anderson Building, the Birch Street School Building, even the library. I think mobile clinics are a good idea, as well as utilization of pharmacies as sites for vaccination, because pharmacies have a trained staff on site. They often have refrigeration and the other things that are necessary for that. I think we're really right now feeling the loss of some of our public health officials that we've cut out of the budget over the past 15 or 20 years. And I think however we respond to this immediate crisis, we should take the lessons and reinvest in our public health capacity. So however we do that.
Thank you. Laura?
Yes, I own a small business and do consulting with local healthcare entities that just met with Dr. Shah this week, the state CDC director that allocates the vaccine. And we were specifically acknowledging that the current distribution is not equitable and does not meet the needs of all elderly citizens in our state. The epidemiological approach right now is velocity, we are all safer the faster we can get vaccine into anybody over 70. I think the town has a role to play in connecting with health entities that are in our community to get vaccines in all primary care practices, pharmacies in our community. When it's time and there is actually a supply of vaccine to go out in a more broad fashioned way, I think the town I would certainly be in support of the town having communal spots and partnering with Bangor Public Health to do on-site vaccine at elder living facilities.
Thank you. Daniel?
Hello?
Yep, you're on.
Great. It worked. I have internationally, the CDC and WHO have been presented internationally with an argument that ivermectin and the hydrochlorine, the quinine, Z-Pak works just well. India, Egypt, and Australia, and France is to follow, are opening up. This ideology is this lining up under this PC correctness is wrong for our society. Now, this needs to be offered. And the thing is people need to have alternatives. The test is not correct. They test wrong. They should also be testing T cells. Nobody's talking about that. The difficulty that arises here is that this stuff is 100% effective, this ivermectin, the protocols for this, and they have been presented because it's only $2.65 in India, the pack. It doesn't sell here. We need to look at something and be intelligent and not, again.
Thank you, Dan. It's, we have that timer that shuts you down, but thank you. And I apologize for that because it's just the nature of the format that we have that really limits us when there's really so much more to say. But Anastasia.
Hi. Well, in my view, we have so many awesome resources in Orono, and I think that's one of the things that makes it great to be a member of this community. And for me, I think one of the most important things we can do involving this issue is just utilizing the resources that we do have to the very best of their abilities. Some of the things that come to mind would be the Orono Public Library, the Orono High School Gym, University of Maine sporting arenas that I have been tested at multiple times. All of those things would be really great locations for vaccines. And I think moving forward, we need to lead with facts by consulting with the leaders in health, not just in Maine, but in the country. And I thank you all for, again, sharing your thoughts, and I forfeit the rest of my time.
Thank you. Alice. No, I'm sorry. Is that right? No, I'm sorry. It's my, well, Ashley. Alice has already responded.
Yeah, so thanks for this question. The weird part about going last is that I just kind of listened to everybody's really awesome brainstorm, and there's a lot of solutions for a really complicated problem, and I bet there's a number of them that would be really viable options. We have great resources in Orono and really helpful people. But I think that this is an issue that gives people a lot of anxiety. I have a parent who is immunocompromised, and I, keep hoping every day that his number's gonna get called for vaccination. And so I just love kind of hearing this troubleshooting. But I do think that a number of opportunities have already been mentioned. Community centers, maybe a mobile clinic, providing rides, and I'm confident that we will tackle that problem really well.
Thank you. So we will move on to the next question, and we will start with, this comes from a community member. We'll start with Tom. The question is, I care deeply about the environment and the outdoor opportunities here in Orono. I'm very impressed with the effort to take care of the environment here. My husband just passed away from ALS, and one of the supports has been the Orono Library. They have helped me find literature to deal with the impending loss and then the passing of my loss. How do candidates support this very important community asset? Tom? Oh, you just mute. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, it's clearly a very important community asset, and I was fortunate to serve on the Library Foundation during the time that we were raising money for it. And David, you were there too. And we're very proud of what's happened there. We're also excited about the potential for some addition to the library that the Library Foundation is now talking about. I think the council is very supportive of the library. We have an excellent staff there. They have really worked hard to continue to provide services during this very difficult time. And I'm a big library supporter.
Thank you, Tom. Cheryl.
Yeah, it's hard to follow Tom because I just want to say what he says. But we have been, the council and Lori Carpenter and the library has been collaborative, and they are innovative and creative in this crazy time. They also serve the children of our community. I know that, before the virus, the middle schoolers would run there, stop at, ampersand, get a cookie, run down to the library. So it is a valuable asset and resource, and I think that we give them anything that they want. So I am very much in favor of supporting our local library, and I can't wait for this to be over so that we can go back to the way it was, as they say.
Thank you. Jeff?
I've been so impressed with the library and seeing how it's grown and seeing how it's really outgrown its current footprint. I was really pleased to hear James Jackson Sanborn's presentation from the Orono Library Foundation a week or so ago when he talked about the plans for expansion. Even though we're still in the planning phase now, it's great because this is a resource that serves every person in our family. Everybody that walks through that door, whether they're 4 or whether they're 84, can get something of value from that place. If I'm fortunate enough to be elected to council, the library will have a friend in me on that council. I cannot speak highly enough about the great job that the staff does and the important role that that facility plays in our community.
Laura?
Yeah, the library has it quickly became a favorite for our family and my kids in particular, going there every day after school, and even taking violin playing there, all kinds of weird stuff. But we continue to access the library with curbside, and I think on the council, I would certainly support the library over the long term. I think over the short term, there are some additional ways that they could engage with the public to engender more interaction and support, whether it's some outdoor browsing, whether it's scheduling individual time to go in. I guess I'd like to see a few more Zoom events. So I think there's some ways, hopefully, that people could engage with it a little bit more, because it is an amazing resource and the staff are really knowledgeable and make great connections with kids and adults. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel? Daniel?
Thank you. Again, I want to go back to something. The original thing on the library was all volunteers. That was a lie. We ended up bailing them out. It cost us quite a bit. And, people, maybe they aspire to things. Again, going back to Carnegie, if we approach them, we could be more and greater, but you'd have to surrender your egos to do it. And I think it's doable. And it would lower the tax base for us and our responsibilities. The library is a wonderful thing, and the fact that it's there is a wonderful thing. I just want to say something again about this ghetto for masks and lockdown. If your pet was to break wind, you would smell it immediately. And the coronavirus is so much smaller than those particles that you would be smelling. This is ridiculous. This is a ghetto. This is a PC correct attitude. Open the library, open our schools. Let's get back to business. Thank you.
Thank you. Anastasia.
Hi. Well, it was a pleasure hearing everybody's thoughts. If I could just throw in my 2 cents, I believe that it all starts with first acknowledgement and then prioritization. Acknowledgement of all of the great things that the library does for the town and um, how much of an impact it has on everybody, students, elders, parents, everybody. Um, and then from there, I think we need to, again, lead from a place of prioritization. Anybody can look up the Town of Orono reports by going on the Town of Orono website. And if you do that, you'll see that the most recent proposal for the town budget was about $10 million. So, of course, we have a lot of things that money goes to. We're not spending it frivolously, but I do believe that again, we need to make it a priority in the budget and our conversations, and in our town. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ashley?
Yeah, thank you. And first of all, to the person who asked that question, that was a really powerful story, and I'm really sorry for your loss. And I think that illustrates the power of libraries. I think probably every person I've ever met has a library story that about, it's shaping their life. Like I experienced the world from my small town in Maine through my library because I didn't have a huge library of my own at home. And my parents took me to our local library with the coolest librarians. That same story is replicated in the children of Orono as well, and in all of these adults. And it's that story that shows us why libraries are important. And of course, I would support any efforts to fund the library because I think that is one of the backbones of our community.
Thank you. Alice?
Yeah, I first want to just say I'm really sorry for your loss, even if it's something that you expect coming kind of with ALS. It's still hard, even in normal times. I would really love to see if we can get people more frequently to the library. What events can we have to spotlight or kind of bring people to that part of town? There's that wonderful amphitheater that we use in the summer on Tuesdays. But how also can we have maybe the library provide even more resources? So, what would it look like to have kind of portable Wi-Fi that people could check out and use in town, camp out on their blankets, doing some homework, checking some emails, and then bring it back to the library to kind of bring more people to town longer, which might have people stopping in for lunch more or a coffee and kind of getting people into that downtown area and beyond just that one strip that we kind of all associate with downtown Orono.
Thank you. On to our next question. Orono's most recent comprehensive plan identifies many opportunities and also many challenges. What is one area of opportunity that interests you particularly, and what is one challenge that you'd be more interested to tackle? So again, the comprehensive plan with the numerous opportunities and challenges, the area of opportunity that interests you, and the area you're interested to tackle. We'll start with Cheryl.
Hi. I'm not sure if I understand an area of what, could you just repeat the first part and maybe,
Sure.
yeah,
So it's the comprehensive plan
right.
identifies opportunities and challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So if
Okay.
it's asking if there's a particular area or opportunity that interests you.
I think one of the things that I'm not sure if there's an area that interests me. The comprehensive plan is a document that we kind of base our policies around and our operations around. So it's more of a guideline. But I think one of the challenges that we are currently invested in is housing, and making sure that we have affordable housing in Orono. And it is a challenge. We're working on reassessing our zoning. We're looking at different ways that we can have residents create smaller lot sizes. We're looking at different ways that we can attempt to monitor some of that. So I think housing is one of the challenges right now.
Thank you. Jeff?
There we go. Sorry about that. The comprehensive plan says at one point that it's a goal of the town to grow a diverse economy built on innovation in both new and legacy industries. And I think that is an opportunity right there to put that statement in front of the council and say, what are the new industries that are going to bring life and viability to our town, and what legacy industries do we want to revive or do we want to invest in to preserve the historic character and historic economy of our town? So I think there is an opportunity there to be intentional about the way that we grow the economic opportunities in our town. I think the challenge is changing people's perceptions of Orono. You know, we are more than just a university community. We're more than just a bedroom community. We're a community where people can live and work and they can make a living. I'm really inspired by this idea of the 20-minute city. It's a theory that says, you know, that you should live in a community that is viable enough to provide you most of your resources within a 20-minute commute. And I'd love to see Orono embrace that idea. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. Laura?
Yes, the issues and areas of importance that I noticed in the comprehensive plan were both around housing and neighborhood kind of revitalization for single family housing that's affordable. And some of that work has begun with the rezoning and the smaller lot sizes. I definitely think there's specific neighborhoods and streets that have really changed character over the last kind of 4 decades of my life and time in Orono. They used to be vibrant single family streets and neighborhoods, and they have definitely transitioned into not as well kept apartment rentals. And I think with the development of a lot of off-campus housing apartments, that the town can focus with landlords and developers on how to transition some of that back to single family housing. And selling the schools and the lifestyle here is critical to bring.
Thank you. Daniel?
Thank you. That lady was on a roll. Bedroom communities is what we were described as. Comprehensive plan is nothing but the UN Agenda 21 and 2030. This is to enhance the taxation and ruin the economic opportunities from somebody starting a small business in a garage. My beautiful fiance did something extraordinary and brought it to the community. Her business model is outstanding. Dreams by Janice. I want to say something seriously, though, is that the comprehensive plan doesn't help our communities. And Stillwater Avenue has all sorts of opportunities that have been overlooked and neglected. And the problem of taxation, making it more, the lot size and everything needs to be changed. It's very sad when families change. You need something different. You have to accept a new family member.
Thank you, Daniel. Anastasia?
Hi. I would just say that one of the many big opportunities for growth in the great town of Orono would be just the unity between the elder, family, and student communities. Unfortunately, when I was collecting signatures to get on the ballot for town council, I had many long-term residents that told me that even though they had been living in Orono for quite a long time, they had never had even like a one-on-one with a University of Maine student. And I think we can do better. In addition to that, I just think that there's really no limit to all the great things that the students at UMaine could contribute to the town as a whole. And it's my goal to help facilitate that as a liaison between both sides.
Thank you. Ashley?
Thank you. Oh, I'll wait until she starts the timer. Yeah, so thanks for that question. I did look through as much of the comprehensive plan as I could, and it's truly comprehensive. All the people who spent a lot of time putting that together did some really great work there. Honestly, my issue is the same as everybody else's. It's affordable housing for young families. It's not in my candidate statement, but this house that we live in, we rented from a landlord, and it has some issues. It's definitely a fixer-upper, and luckily I married somebody who can do some fixer-upper work. But we're in a part of the basin that's kind of starting to see a shift away from student housing and towards more family homes, and we're kind of part of that. So that's why it's a big, important issue for me as kind of a young parent. So that would be like my biggest issue that I would tackle as well.
Alice?
I think what excites me is the idea of serving on a town council where we all bring different priorities and interests and get to work on them together. For me, I'm really interested in this idea of the complete streets policy. So making sure that we have a street network that's accessible, safe, and efficient for motor vehicleists, bicyclists, and people by foot. I lived here for the first 7 years without a car. So that's something that I've personally had to deal with, and I know a lot of people that struggle with transportation issues in this area. What I'm looking most forward to tackling is kind of how we can get people to spend more time in our town. How can we get them earn their dollars, earn their interest in bringing their family here and spending time getting to know the community, the people, and the businesses that really make this town shine, and kind of enjoy those natural parts of our community as well, from the river, the lake, the various trail systems. I think we have a lot to offer if we market it well.
Thank you. Tom?
I think housing was the most talked about topic during the comprehensive plan work. We had the council chambers filled with people who were concerned about both affordable housing and neighborhoods changing because longtime family homes are being turned into student housing. I think we've made some progress in those areas, but I think there is a great opportunity to do more. And Orono has a very old housing stock. There is not a lot of good quality, modestly priced homes in the town, and we really need to focus on that.
Thank you, Tom. Next question comes from an attendee. How do you feel about the opening of a marijuana store or dispensary in Orono? What are the upsides and downsides in your opinion? And we'll start with Jeff.
I think businesses that are allowed by law and that have low impact on the communities should be supported in our town. And if that's a restaurant, that's great. If it's a marijuana dispensary and it adheres to the regulations, that's great as well. I think council did an amazing job being so deliberative about the development of policies in Orono. And if I had one criticism to offer, I would say that maybe in that deliberation, we lost a little bit of our competitive edge because other communities jumped into that to have that opportunity before we got a chance to do it. I have a great appreciation for those people who are willing to take risks to start clean, safe businesses in our community. And I'm really appreciative of the work that council has done to establish rules and regulations that I think will support safe businesses. Yeah.
Thank you. Laura?
Yeah, the federal government currently has not legalized marijuana businesses. So I am more inclined to wait, and there's a preponderance of facilities for access to this in Bangor. I'm concerned about the long-time viability of the businesses without the alignment with federal law. as far as a revenue stream for the town. I think my vision for Orono is around young families and the schools, and I don't see an alignment between that and marijuana facilities. I also think that the brain development of our college students is not complete before you're 26. And so additional opportunities for making poor choices before your brain is fully developed is not helpful from a public health perspective for our community. But this is up to the residents to vote on, not to council members. So it's up to you on March 9th to make these decisions.
Thank you. Daniel?
Thank you. I'm all for business. In the business of the marijuana, things considered, Stillwater Avenue was completely forgotten out of the picture. That is a big agricultural place, has the power considerations. You know, Orono has a reputation for driving businesses out. Stryers, Lane Construction, all over the state had its vehicles here, and you drove them out. You know, Drunk Orono is on Thursday or something like that with all the beer. I love beer, but get me, there's more businesses that are available than just that. You know, you have an exclusivity that's pretty sad here. And, you know, our homesteads and our farm opportunities within the community and our young families are all greatly diminished because we don't embrace change. We don't embrace new things. And you're all talking the same lingo. Thank you.
Thank you. Anastasia?
Thank you for this question. I think there's a lot that I could say on this, but just respecting the time constraints, I will of course say that I do support having a marijuana dispensary in Orono, and you know, I feel like it's impossible for me to really speak on this without first acknowledging just the fact that the criminalization of marijuana has certainly disproportionately affected people of color. And even though, you know, there are a lot of things, you know, to be considered. We dispensaries are going to be much like any other small business. You know, they have their clientele and they will provide a solid stream of additional taxes, which of course we could always use. So thank you.
Thank you. Ashley?
First of all, I'm very interested to see what the voters want with this, because ultimately that's where the decision's going to lie in March. But you know, kind of pending what happens there, if it passes and that's what the voters in Orono want, I think I would just look at each individual business plan and hope that they are well thought out and responsible. But other than that, it would be nice to have the income, again, as long as, you know, on a case by case basis, all of the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed and things like that. So, you know, again, I think it's ultimately up to the voters.
Thank you. Alice? Yes.
It's exciting that it's coming up again. With how close it was before, there's about 300-ish people that kind of decided it towards yes. I think any new business in town would help with the tax revenue, which would give town council more to work with. And just thinking again about that accessibility with transportation and the aging population that we have here as well. For some people, cannabis is part of their medicinal routine. And so if we can make that more accessible, I'm not opposed to that, but you know, it's really up to folks to vote. And this isn't a November election. So I hope if anything, people that are listening, if this is something that you care about, along with hopefully electing some of us, show up on March 9th and make your voice heard so we know what you would like to see from us and not just our opinions on what we think matters.
Thank you. Tom?
I'll be honest and say that we began the discussion on marijuana facilities in Orono. I was very skeptical and frankly felt negatively towards it. Um, there are 4 different types of establishments that could be in town, from the retail stores to the production facilities to the testing facilities. However, I think our town planner, with input from town council, has done an absolutely amazing job crafting the ordinance that would govern these establishments. And I'm happy to have the citizens of the town make their decision on it. And they will make their decision March 9th.
Thank you. Cheryl.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on Tom, because this was a very deliberative process. It took months for council to go over everything, and the ordinances are in place for a yes, and if it's a no, then it won't happen. But council decided to let the people vote on this because we felt that it was an important vote. It's a historic vote for this for cannabis to be accessed, retail or cultivated or however it shows up in Orono. But I'm pretty confident that we have the zoning in place. We have done extensive research, and that any decision that the town makes, we will abide by. But it's ready. It's ready to go in a very responsible way.
Thank you. Next question comes from one of our attendees. One of the things I value most highly in local government is transparency and ease of citizen participation. I believe most Mainers value this as well. And over the last year, I have noticed a number of ways in which the town council could improve in this regard. Some examples include publishing all meeting agendas at least a week in advance, publishing a full list of town policies on the Orono website, expanding public comment time at council meetings, and adding public comment time to committee meetings. Question is, if elected to the Orono Town Council, what specifically will you do to create an environment that encourages citizen participation and fosters government transparency? And we will begin with Laura.
Yeah, I think one takeaway from this pandemic has been the opening and access of meetings to participate via Zoom. And I know not everybody has internet, but it certainly has improved accessibility for myself and the recording of meetings to be able to watch and know what's going on within the town. So that is one thing I think would be important to continue in that level of accessibility in some way, whether we meet in person or not. I think the specific ideas suggested are worth merit. I'd want to talk to staff and understand if there was any legal limitations on publishing all the town policies on the website. I don't see why there would be. Big fan of expanding public comment within a time fashion. Just attending some meetings where you're supposed to add public comment before the conversation has even started. And then again, at the very end, after it's already occurred, is awkward. And so finding some balance to hear public comment in a more open way, and potentially it's via chat online.
Thank you. Daniel?
Thanks. My gosh, that was taken right off one of my signs. I can't believe that. How astute. Every single thing there is exactly what I promote. But I'd like to speak, what needs to be done. We need a public vote. We need to end mask and state restrictions and mandates. That ghetto needs to be done. We need to finish that, stop that immediately. We need to open our town meetings and go to church and live our lives accordingly. This is all a load of crap. And the thing is right now with this 1916, this is almost like shades of Orwell's 1984 nonsense. And how dare anybody think and hold dear their heart to these PC correctness or your ideologies to destroy our very community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anastasia?
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yes, give me just a second. So the question was, if elected to town council, what specifically will you do to create an environment that encourages citizen participation and fosters government transparency?
Yeah, well, I think that's an awesome question. And I think one of the things we could do would be to utilize new technology and embed that into our regular practices as a government. So for example, I would be in full support of having all of the town council meetings, even like post COVID, being able to access via Zoom, and that way people could comment live and be active and participate, even if they can't, make it there in person. In addition to that, I think it's important that each member of the town council uses their platform to educate and share with the public in a very intentional way about how exactly they can be involved and what they can do to help support that involvement.
Thank you, Anastasia. Ashley?
Yeah, so transparency is really important to me as a human being. I'm obviously a political science student, and it's one of the cornerstones of democracy. Sometimes in my spare time, when I have it, I volunteer for the League of Women Voters, and I work on a democracy project there that's focused on transparency and money in politics. So this is an issue that, I've kind of taken in my life to kind of dedicate a portion of what little free time I do have. I do think the town does an okay job of being transparent. I've been able to read through minutes, even if I haven't been able to go to meetings, which is really great. I just think that we could take what we already do and, maybe implement some of those suggestions in the question and make it a little stronger, but we're already doing pretty great on transparency. Just a little bit further would be awesome.
Thank you. Alice?
Yeah, for me, transparency is important, but where that kind of the root problem can be is the language. So making sure, as a counselor, that I'm speaking about things and knowing that it's not just me and my fellow counselors that are doing the work, but there might be somebody watching at home either live or later that's trying to follow along and might have missed a meeting because they're picking up their kids or doing something else, and making sure that we're keeping our language open and accessible so that people feel comfortable participating and can do it in an informed way. Also, keeping videos online, but perhaps having timestamps where people can jump to or linked annotated to the minutes. So that way, if I have a particular issue that I'm really passionate about, I know exactly where to go and I don't have to watch an hour 2 hour long video to try and find the really important part that I want to follow up with one of the counselors. We're members at large, so we're accountable to everybody and not just folks that understand kind of that local town politics, language, and jargon.
Thank you, Alice. Tom?
I just ditto Ashley's comment. I think the town has done a good job of being transparent. A lot of our material is online, is on the website. You can access a tremendous amount of material through the website. Can we do a better job and pick up on some of these suggestions? I'm sure we can, and that would make it even more transparent. But I think in general, we're doing a good job of being transparent.
Thank you, Tom. Cheryl?
Yeah, I think so too. I think our ordinances are on the website. Our comprehensive plan is on the website. Our minutes, our recordings. I think you can find it. It's difficult sometimes to scroll around and try to get what you're looking for. I think Alice might have mentioned something like that. I also think we do a good job with transparency. And also, as a counselor, I'm an interpersonal communicator. And if anyone has any questions or anything that they want to know, I offer to, to meet with them. I offer to, email or call, please, call or email if there's ever anything. And I think we all are like that. I think we all kind of gravitate toward, making sure that the public and that residents are comfortable with decisions. And so yeah, I have to say that I think we do a fairly good job about that, but we could do better.
Thank you. Jeff?
Excuse me. Thanks. Yeah, I think this idea of transparency is at the heart of our participatory democracy, right? And I appreciate the fact that so much of the town's material is now on the website, and we've streamed on multiple platforms. I most frequently access public meetings through the Facebook platform. That way you don't have to hear my comments. I just can watch it. And I love having that multi-platform approach. I do think post-COVID, when we're able to get back together, in addition to continuing to stream these meetings, we got to take the meetings on the road. As far as I know, in the 20 years that I've been here, I've never seen a town council meeting take place at the University of Maine. We have a huge population there, a student population and a faculty and resident population there that we're not addressing. I think we have other facilities in town that would also be great venues to hold a meeting. And what Cheryl did last year, bringing young people into town council meetings, is an awesome opportunity then to invite their parents and their grandparents into council meetings. So we should take every opportunity to be transparent and to engage in outreach to communities that we might not normally be able to access. Thanks.
Thank you all. So this next question I'm going to alter a little bit. It was originally that what you thought the town does particularly well in serving residents well. I'm going to change it. What are some of the ways that you believe the town doesn't serve residents particularly well, and where do you see opportunities for improvement? And we'll start with Dan. Daniel?
Thank you. Having a business, struggling the third year out every time for my taxes, is kind of a hardship. And the difficulty that arises, the town promoted a ideology, the Black Lives Matter, put it on the sign of the town hall, painted the crosswalks. I thought, okay, let's paint some Christian crosses there, and oh no, they can't do that. I never saw one business in the town so supported and presented. When you stand alone and you could use some extra help, university could help, but the political correct attitude at the town, at the university level, is very progressive, and it's not capitalistic, and helping those in the community benefit the community. I offer a resource that is beneficial to the community.
Thank you, Dan. Anastasia?
Would you mind repeating the question, please?
Sure. It is, what are some of the ways in which you believe the town doesn't serve its residents particularly well, or has real opportunities for improvement?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. To start, I would just like to go on record and say that Black lives do in fact matter. And we should prioritize the inclusion of people of color because they contribute so much to our town, even though I believe the town can and should be more diverse. The people of color that are here are amazing, and our town wouldn't be what it is without them. To that end, again, I want to improve the unity of the town, and I mentioned this in my opening argument. And as Mr. Wingard had mentioned, I believe we can do a much better job of including students in the town, which is part of the reason why I, as a student, am running for town council. Of course, students at the University of Maine are almost a third of the population of all of Orono, and I believe that we should have a voice and we should have a say in the policies that are being created here. So thank you.
Thank you. Ashley.
Yeah, so I'd love to start by saying I just love Orono. So that's, kind of the first thing. That's not to say that there aren't things that can be improved on. Obviously, one of my biggest issues is housing for young families. And I think that it's important to, if we want our town to grow over time, we do really need to attract these young families, because people like Laura will come back because they love the town, right? And that's kind of what we want to encourage is, like my husband came here for undergrad, got his PhD from, another university, and came back because he loves it here. And I think that anything we can do to kind of increase that would be better than not that we're doing an awful job, but I would like to see more affordable housing for young people. I think Tom mentioned something about how, if you look at the housing market, there aren't a lot of mid-priced houses that aren't falling apart. And not many people I know my age can take on a huge project like this. So that's the number one thing I think that we could improve on.
Thank you. Alice.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that either the town already does really well or are working towards those kind of long-term projects that, it's my cat, that need to be addressed to really improve them. But that accessibility and that walkability of town, I think, is so important. There's, at least when the comprehensive plan came out, 24.3% who walk. Walking in the winter in Orono sucks. I've had to do it. It's cold, it's slushy, and you got places to go and got to go do things, got to go to work. So having those complete streets that are even accessible in the winter, I think, is really important. And potentially pairing that with engagement, right? We know a handful of times that are the busiest when it comes to parking. How can we use the community connector that ends at 5 p.m. only during the weekdays, only during academic semester, to kind of help with that stress of parking and also get people into downtown to frequent the businesses that we have safely, where be it they drink alcohol or they walk, we don't have to worry about people in the winter potentially putting themselves at risk.
Thank you. Tom.
There. I think that our services in Orono are very good quality. But having said that, there is always room to improve services. We made a change in our police department just in the last 2 weeks that I think improves our police department services significantly. I'd focus some improvement on programs for youth and programs for senior citizens. I think those are two areas that we could do more.
Thank you. Cheryl.
When you asked that question, there were two things that I thought of, and one of them was transportation, which I think Alex did a good job explaining. We have the bus systems, and a lot of the students, and I've talked to Anna about this too, is getting to grocery shop and getting to Hannaford's and things like that. If you don't have a car, I think that I'd like to see that improve. I know that once again, the virus has kind of halted us in that area. I'm an environmentalist and an environmental activist, and one of the things that I'm working on right now is recycling for our renters and our bigger apartment complexes, and they don't have access to that. And so I've been working on trying to find a way for our renters to have more. I think it's a lifestyle choice right now. It's kind of like wearing seat belts, and several call the town to find out where they can participate in a recycling program. And so I think we're falling short on that, and I'm working to improve that.
Thank you. Jeff.
I love living in Orono, and I think the town does a phenomenal job on a shoestring budget in many, many ways. So kudos to the public works people and the people in the town office who do an amazing amount of work with very few resources. I do think council could be more intentional about identifying and reaching out to underserved communities in our town, and that could be geographically underserved communities, or it could be communities that don't participate because they have other barriers. For example, we don't have much ASL and English language learner support for people to access town services. I'd like to see more behind the scenes service sharing. Recently, there was a great example of that, sharing code enforcement responsibilities with Old Town. And I'd love to see more of that kind of service provision sharing occur. And finally, as Tom said, our programs for young people and for elders should be far more robust. We have so many people that are willing to contribute in this town. It would be great to tap into what those people have to offer.
Thank you. And Laura.
Thank you. Having lived in Bangor for 14 years and then Hamden for 4 years and moving here, I feel that I can strongly say that the services in Orono are top notch and far better than what you would find in other communities. Obviously, room for growth. I think financial sustainability around maintaining those services is going to be a concern, particularly when you think about housing affordability and bringing families in, and how do you balance and maintain the service level that we have, the sidewalk plowing, the number of sidewalks, the accessibility in Orono is bar none compared to other communities in Maine. And so that would be my concern. I do think affordable housing and neighborhood revitalization in some older communities. And also there are some pockets of socioeconomic diversity that I grew up in Orono that I think potentially the town could see if there's outreach and support that could be given there.
Thank you. Well, that did go by very quickly, and so there are a lot of questions that I didn't get to, and I apologize for that. But we are at the close and the opportunity to give a closing statement. I would offer this as a possibility, certainly not bound by it, but you might want to include it, and probably already have in your closing. But someone said, what is the key reason you are running for town council? So if that's something that you want to address in your closing, fine. If not, certainly, people are interested to hear your final statements. So we will start where we began with Anna. I think I've been calling her Anastasia right along, but I'll take the liberty and say, Anna, please go ahead. So Anna, we'll start when you're ready. Okay.
Yes, sorry about that. Little technical difficulties. Yeah, I just like to say that Election Day is March 9th from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the council chambers that's located at 59 Main Street in Orono. Residents who live in Orono can register to vote on Election Day, and absentee ballots will be available beginning on Monday, February 8th, and can be requested until the close of business Thursday on March 4th. For general election questions, of course, you can contact the town office, and you can find the phone number on the website. And if you'd like to learn anything else about me, you can visit my website at anastasiastonik.com, or follow me on any of my social medias, are all Anastasia Stonik. And yeah, in closing, I'd just like to say, please go out and vote, even if it's not for me. Our democracy relies on your input. And of course, it would be an honor to represent the interests of the town. But at the end of the day, I just want what's best for the town. And what's best for the town is having everybody's input and everybody being included.
Thank you. Ashley.
Yeah, thanks again for this opportunity. Part of what motivated me to run for council is I am 30 something. I have a young family, and I think, Megan Gardner is probably my only kind of peer group person on the council right now. And I would love to see more young families taking a participatory role in our local democracy. And so I thought that, if that's what I believe in, that's what I should do. So that's part of why I'm running. And obviously some of the issues that are most important to me are ones that kind of reflect that. But I'd just like to kind of conclude by asking people for their vote. And I do have a website. It's Ashley for Orono, Ashley spelled with an EY. And if you have any questions or comments, I really want to hear from people. And I'm bummed I couldn't knock on your door. I would have, but I can't. So I've got like a contact form there. If you have any questions or want to talk about anything, just drop me a line. Thank you.
Thank you. Alice.
So I want to thank folks again for taking time to both hear what we have to say and ask some really thoughtful, important questions tonight. I hope that this isn't something limited to just tonight. I moved here in 2012 not knowing really anyone, and I've come to know quite a good amount of people here in Orono, but I know that I don't know everybody. And with that role of being at large, right? So counselors are kind of beholden to everyone. I want to take that effort to get to know folks. So if you see me in town before the election or after, if I'm elected, tell me what you're concerned about. Tell me what you're excited about. I want to hear from folks and not just kind of go on the paper agenda exclusively. So if you see me in town, say hi. If you're not someone who goes into town a lot, I have a Facebook page. It's my name, and then for Orono Town Council. I hope I see a lot of I voted stickers in March, because I think local elections are just as important, if not more, than the big national ones.
Thank you. Tom.
Dave, I'd like to thank you for volunteering to moderate this activity. I really appreciate your willingness to do that. And I'd also like to say that I'm very impressed by the quality of the candidates that we have for both council seats and school directors seats. We're very fortunate to have as many people interested and willing to put in the time. I first ran for council because I wanted to give back to a community that had given me a great deal, and I still feel the same way. I think I bring experience to the council, both as a long-term resident and as the senior and oldest member of the council. I've served the longest time there. I think I still have a lot to offer the council, and I would like to have your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Cheryl.
I am not going to follow Tom in this next one, okay? Tom said everything. I also was thinking, what a great, it is so nice to see so many faces that want to serve this community, and so many great, and I'm really sincere about that, and I know that Tom is too. I am interested in continuing my stint on council because I've got so many irons in the fire right now that I feel like I would just come to a screeching halt. But at the same time, I trusted people of Orono, and I know everybody will make the best decision that they can for them. So, and thank you all for being here, and thank you, David, for moderating.
Thank you, Cheryl. Jeff.
Great. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate the time that people have taken to listen to us tonight, and the work that Belle's done behind the scenes, Dave's done in front of the camera, and things like that. I am running because I'm passionate about this community. It's the place that I've chosen to make my home, and I will be here as long as I possibly can, participating in as many ways as people will allow me to participate. I'm really interested in building community connections, working on stewardship of our environment, and creating a community in which people can live and work and succeed. So I hope that I'm able to participate as a town councilor. And if that's your choice, if not, I hope I'm able to participate in any other way in which I can contribute to this community. So thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Jeff. Laura.
Thank you. Well, tonight I'm here to ask for your vote. I bring experience on municipal boards, planning boards, historic preservation, the Orono-VZ Water District, and in addition to working in economic development around rural and Eastern Maine, and at United Way, working with many nonprofits, and now partnering with healthcare entities around public health issues and running my own business. I feel like I can bring a lot of experience to the position and just genuine passion for the community of Orono, and perspective from having been other places as well, and would find it an honor to serve. I think selling the amazing lifestyle, I've already gotten 2 people to move to Orono since to buy homes here since I've moved here. So families, so I'm on that mission. I would continue that mission. And I've cut out of this meeting twice while on the best possible internet speed that you can get here. So broadband for Orono.
Thank you. And Dan?
Thank you. I really appreciate, good job, actually, very good job. I think I offer an alternative voice. Martin Luther King, I have a dream, is all lives matter equally. Shame on anybody that picks on somebody else. MainRepublic.com, access that, please. I think the public needs to vote. We need to do away with the comprehensive plan. Victoria, Texas doesn't have one. We need to do away with sanctuary city. We need to unfunded mandates from the state. We need to avoid that. That is hurting our businesses bad. None of you spoke about that. Shame on you. That's the biggest thing hurting us. This is a ghetto, and that's designed, and masks and the shutdowns, the lockdowns on this. We need alternative CV-19 acceptance. T cells are not tested. They don't do that. Ivermectin and hydrochloride, that quinine is good alternatives, and we need to do that. Homeopathics works as well. Signs on Stillwater. We need animal signs down there. A lot of people doing farms.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you all. And yes, really, thank you all for participating in this candidates forum night. It says annual, but certainly this has to be the first in terms of the way that it's conducted. And really thank Belle and the staff who did just a really great job. Just asking the questions is the easy part. Answering them is the hard part. And putting things in line so that it's worked so great. I have to say I was reminded just growing up in a small town and watching my grandfather be the moderator at the annual town meetings in March, where things got done in one swoop on one day, but just hundreds of people crowding into a gymnasium to get the work done for a town. I'm sure this format would have surprised him in one way, but in another way would have loved it. So thank you all. And don't forget to vote for everybody out there. As everybody's mentioned, Election Day is March 9th. The polls open at 7 and they close at 8 in the council chamber. Absentee ballots will be available on Monday, the February 8th. And you can check out the town website at www.orono.org for more information about how to get your absentee ballot or register to vote. The town will also be hosting in-person absentee voting in council chamber on February 25th and March 4th, 8 to 5. This is drop-in, no appointment needed. However, in respect for the people that have to do the work, don't forget to wear your mask. Tonight's meeting will be posted on the town's YouTube channel tomorrow for those who could not attend or watch the live stream. Along with the link to the video, voters can also find bios or statements provided by the candidates posted on the town's website. Thank you all again. Nice to hear from you all. It was a great experience and I learned a lot. So thank you again. And good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.